The state of Washington is facing a $4.6 billion shortfall, and education isn't immune to significant cuts that will impact students, staff, and communities. Schools depend on funding from local, state, and federal sources. At the state level, education is being dealt a major blow in the current year and through the next two-year funding cycle. School districts now face what they are calling a funding cliff, one of the many dynamics impacting education in our state. Districts no longer receive federal stimulus dollars, which have helped financially strapped districts survive the past 2 years, and will not be helped by EduJobs funding. Washington state school districts lost millions in K-4 class size enhancement dollars, effective February 1, 2011. This money paid for teaching positions that helped keep class sizes down in the early grades. Class sizes are expected to jump from 22 students to 26 or 27 per classroom without state support for extra teachers. In 2011 to 2012, the pension contribution districts are required to make will increase. State Medicaid funding for special education students is being eliminated, yet the legal responsibility to provide medical-related services for qualifying students remains. In addition, one of the most inequitable proposals being considered by state legislators is the reduction or elimination of levy equalization, which helps level the playing field for all public schools in Washington. What is levy equalization? To answer that question, first let's explain levies and why they're needed. Here's how it works. School districts must ask voters to approve local levies, which pay for basic programs and services not fully funded by the state or federal government. The amount of money a school district can raise from a local levy is based on property value in the school district's service area. In a community such as Seattle, the total property value is high when compared to a community such as Longview. As a result, the tax impact of raising $1 for a school levy is higher in Longview than it is in Seattle. Because of this, property-rich school districts can provide more educational opportunities than property-poor districts.
If Boeing is in your school district, they're paying a bulk of the property taxes, and the individual taxpayers pay less. In a bedroom community like Woodland with a relatively small commercial and industrial property base, our taxpayers pay proportionally much greater amounts per student than richer school districts.
To help remedy the disparity, the state provides levy equalization funds. Communities with low average property values are compensated by the state for the difference. In Kelso, levy equalization is $593 per student and amounts to $2.6 million a year. Seattle School District receives none.
All children deserve a quality education, not just those from families with means or communities that can provide it. So it's essential that our legislators, that all of us work together to find ways to equally fund all schools.
The state, faced with a $4.6 billion shortfall for 2011 to 13, proposes to make drastic cuts in many state programs, including levy equalization. If schools lose levy equalization funds, the gaps between the property-rich and property-poor school districts will widen, and a larger share of the state's responsibility to pay for its public schools will fall on local communities.
We have over 50% of our children in poverty, so obviously their parents and neighbors do not have a great deal of resources that they don't need for the basics, and yet our rate per thousand is much greater than our richer neighbors to the north. And one could even make a case that children who come from poverty actually need more support than those whose parents have the ability to provide opportunities for them.
Our problem has been exacerbated by the decline in revenue associated with folks losing their jobs and having to move out of the community. So we, as a result, have had a pretty big impact in terms of our budget.
Levy equalization helps schools across the state provide equitable opportunities regardless of where a student happens to live. Reduction or elimination of these funds would disproportionately impact poorer communities and make it harder for them to provide reasonable class sizes, current textbooks, bus transportation, special education services, arts and music programs, and after-school activities including sports. The Washington State Legislature recently passed a new school funding formula designed to create greater transparency of school funding. With the new model, information can be easily summarized to show how districts are funded in specific categories. The state does not anticipate there to be any additional funds for schools. They will simply be changing the names of categories of funding. ESHB 2261 does not dictate that school districts spend the resources in the specified categories, but rather gives local control over how funds are used. Many school leaders believe that by specifying what is and isn't funded, the legislature will be able to acknowledge current deficiencies in school funding.
There are others whose perspective is that the state will turn around and say, we are funding this. They're taking the same amount of money or less money and spreading it into different categories.
It is important to note that the new funding formula comes with no new money for schools and will not be fully implemented until 2018.
We cannot allow the children who are first, second, and third graders right now to not have the same education that their parents did or that we hope others will have when this turns around. So we have to work together on solving the problems.
We aim to provide the highest quality education we can in Woodland and in Cowlitz County schools, and we believe that the field should be a level playing field.
As the state of Washington tackles the $4.6 billion deficit, cuts that affect our youngest citizens should be carefully considered because short-term funding solutions can mean a lifetime of loss of opportunities. For more information about school funding and the challenges that face our districts, please contact your local school district.